am I the a-hole for telling people I was getting engaged at my sister's wedding? First, some context. This happened 16 years ago, so there will be no updates. You get the whole story right now. My older sister, let's call her OS, and I are only two of a rather large batch of kids, all from the same two parents, and we have never gotten along. We only kind of do now that we live in separate states with over 1,000 miles between us. To make a lifelong story short, OS bullied me the entire time we were growing up, calling me by a nickname I hated, hitting me for trying to do the same to her, yelling at me when things didn't go her way. Typical sibling stuff for the most part, but she always ignored any boundaries I had and considered them less important than her wants. My parents usually tried to mediate, but it just never worked. Please don't get me wrong. My parents are amazing and I love them dearly. Anyway, OS got married for the first time the summer she graduated high school and divorced about 2 to 3 years later after having nephew and niece. She and her husband lived in our house with our parents, and some stuff happened that we won't get into here. Basically, he was abusive, but clever enough about it to keep my parents from noticing. With everything else they had going on, it was a lot, but that's not for the story. When I was 18, my husband, who I met through my older brother and OS when I was 11 to 12 years old, came back from 2 years out of state. OS was in a relationship, and my husband, DH, had become interested in me before he went out of state, but didn't act on it because I was not of legal age yet. Once he was back, I was a legal adult, so he started chasing me. OS got engaged to the guy she was with, let's call him Bill, around the time DH and I started dating. Keep in mind, Bill is not my sister's first husband. This is her second engagement and marriage. Now that we've got the context set up, let's get on to the story. OS and Bill picked January for their wedding, and the date was within a couple of days of niece's birthday. I remember asking if she was sure she wanted to have the wedding so close to her daughter's birthday, but OS said it was fine because niece was only turning 2, or something like that. It's been a while. About a month before OS and Bill's wedding, DH and I started talking about the possibility of us getting married. I know a lot of people on here are going to think I was way too young at 18 to be talking about marriage, but I have no regrets at all. We've been married almost 16 years now, and are still very much in love. Part of DH's and my discussion as we were talking about getting married was OS' upcoming wedding. We didn't want to detract from her wedding. Even though she and I never got along, I do still love my sister, and I always will. If she needs me, I'll be there. I didn't want to ruin her day. About a week before OS' wedding, DH and I decided to stop talking about it and just get engaged. We were going to wait to announce it to extended family and friends until after OS' wedding was over, but of course we decided to tell our parents and siblings. Naturally, this included OS and Bill, and we did this a few days before their wedding. Everyone agreed to actually discuss the engagement after OS' wedding. Here is where I might be the a-hole. I had a ring that DH and I had picked out together as a placeholder for an engagement ring until we could afford to go get a nicer one. Since I had the ring, I wore it on my left ring finger to my sister's wedding and reception. As most people in the USA know, that indicates you're engaged. So, at the reception, people would see the ring and ask me if I was engaged. I didn't want to lie to anyone, so when they asked, and only when they asked, I told them yes. I tried to not make a big deal out of it, but I got asked several times during the reception, and some people must have spread it around because some of the times I was asked it was in a "so I heard you're engaged" kind of way. OS was furious and insisted I ruined her day by announcing my engagement at her wedding reception. OS is now divorced from Bill. They're pretty good co-parents for their shared child, and Bill even took the older two along to family activities, since their bio father isn't in the picture. Even after the divorce, Bill still did that for a while. I don't know if he still does or if nephew and niece still go. Like I mentioned, I live pretty far away now. OS and Bill only lasted about 2 years together. To this day, OS still brings up that I announced my engagement at her wedding. I didn't put it on Facebook until probably a week after her wedding. At the time, pretty much everyone we knew was using Facebook, so that was the easiest way to announce it and how we chose to let people know officially. So, am I the a-hole, or is my sister just holding a grudge and I should ignore her? Edit. For clarity, my husband and I are 4 years apart in age. Neither of us was interested in the other until I was in my mid-teens. It was an "oh, she's a girl" sort of taking interest initially because he didn't recognize me in costume with hair and makeup at a performance until OS told him who I was. He didn't say anything and dated other people before he left for 2 years, and I didn't find out he had ever been interested in me until I was already 18. Nothing creepy happened. Also, I did apologize to OS 16 years ago. She just keeps bringing it up. All the time.